Hi everyone, welcome back to Eden. How are you all doing? So I hope you're all doing great. So we have been discussing about all the different types of nouns, the pronouns and adjectives. The previous sessions or in the previous videos we have finished about all the different types of adjectives and the rules and regulations related to the adjectives and all. Now we'll start with a fresh topic that is very important. Okay, we can say like this topic which we are going to start is like very important. That is like we can say the heart of English. So grammar. So which is nothing but verb. Okay. So today we'll be seeing about verbs. So before discussing about verbs, so you know what a verb is. So in simple we have said like verb is something which will talk about action. Verb is in simple defined as an action word. Now, so depending upon how we are using it, it can be an action or it can even be a state of mind. So that is also verb. So the classification of verbs will be seeing first of all how they are classified. So verbs are firstly classified as finite and non-finite. So I can make the chart and then explain, but why am I doing it along with telling is because like while I tell, if you one after the other, if you start taking it down or if you just practice it along, it will be like more helpful. It will make you remember it for a longer time rather than the complete chart at once. So this finite verbs are further classified as helping verbs, or you can say linking, helping verbs and linking verbs. Helping are otherwise called as auxiliary verbs. The further subclassification of this auxiliary verbs, again I'll make it in another chart. Okay, how they are classified. So the main verbs. So first of all, finite verbs and non-finite verbs. In finite verbs only you will be having helping verbs as well as main verbs. This non-finite also I'll make another chart. Right? So verbs are classified as finite and non-finite, and finite verbs are classified as helping verbs and main verbs. In helping verbs again, linking verbs and auxiliary verbs. Helping verbs are otherwise called as auxiliary verbs, or you can simply say these are subclassifications of auxiliary and linking of helping verbs. Right? Again, I'll make a clear diagram. You understood, right? So first of all, they are classified as finite and non-finite. So now I am making only finite verbs. Only finite verbs. So finite verbs are main verbs, which are called as lexical. Main verbs or lexical verbs. And here, these are helping verbs. So this further, they have been classified into auxiliary verbs, linking verbs. Okay. So the main verbs are classified based on object, okay, based on object, based on action, and again based on past forms. Right? So first of all, verbs are classified as finite and non-finite. Finite verbs are classified as helping and main verbs. Helping verbs are auxiliary verbs and linking verbs. Main verbs are called as lexical verbs. They are further classified based on object, based on action and based on past forms. Now I am taking this particular main verbs and further classifying it. See, main verbs is again a part of finite only. Lexical. So these are based on object, based on action and based on past forms. Based on object, they are classified as transitive or intransitive. Based on action, they are classified as dynamic or action and stative or stative. Okay, static or stative. Based on past forms, they are regular or irregular. Right? Understood it? So, first of all, verbs are classified as finite, non-finite. Under finite, they are classified as main verbs and helping verbs. Now we are seeing main verbs which are called as lexical verbs. So, main verbs are further classified based on object or based on their action or based on the past forms. So, based on the action, they are again further classified as transitive and intransitive. Based on action, they are dynamic or static. And based on past form, they can be regular or irregular. This again, each type will be explaining, will be seeing in detail. Now coming to in finite only, we have seen what is the other kind. One is main verbs, this one is helping verbs. Okay, helping verbs are auxiliary and here linking. Auxiliary verbs and linking verbs, right? Coming to auxiliary verbs, again they are classified as primary, okay, modal and semi-modal. There is no further classification of linking verbs, but for auxiliary there is primary, modal and semi-modal. Again, primary are three kinds like be form, okay, do and have verbs. Be verbs, do verbs and have verbs. Okay, coming to modal verbs, can, could, okay, may, might, okay, shall and should and will and would, must. These are all modal verbs. Coming to semi-modal verbs, need, dare, you ought to, okay, and used to. These are semi-modal verbs. Now you have seen, right? So finite verbs are divided into finite, non-finite. Finite are divided into helping and main verbs. In main verbs, what are the types we have seen? Under helping verbs, they are classified as auxiliary and linking verbs. So there is no further classification of linking verbs, but auxiliary verbs are further classified as primary auxiliary verbs, modal auxiliary verbs and semi-modal auxiliary verbs. So primary auxiliary verbs are be, do, have forms. What is be form? Like am, is, are, was, were, all these are be forms. Coming to do, does, did, do, have, will do, okay, done, All these are do forms. Coming to primary, this have form, it is like has, have, had, will have and having. Okay, so modal verbs are can and could, may and might, shall and should, okay, will and would, must. And semi-modal are in some cases will be used to, like used to, okay, used to, need, dare, ought to, all these things. We will be seeing about each and every type in detail again. We will be explaining all the types in detail. Okay. Now coming to non-finite type. In non-finite type, these are classified into 3. Infinitives, gerunds. Infinitives, gerunds and participle. Okay. So, infinitives are nothing but 2 plus the verb form, one verb form. That is root form of verb. And gerunds will take V4. That is ing form of verb. And coming to participle, this again has present, past and perfect. So, the present participle will be the V4 form, that is ing form. Past participle is V3 form. And coming to perfect is having plus V3 form. So, what is this V1, V2, V3 forms? We will discuss when we are discussing about irregular verbs. So, with this, all the different classifications of verbs, how the verbs are classified is over. So, how they are classified? They are classified as, first of all, they are classified as finite and non-finite. Under finite, they are again classified as helping verbs and lexical verbs. Helping verbs are further classified as auxiliary verbs and linking verbs. Auxiliary verbs are further classified as primary auxiliary, modal and semi-modal auxiliary verbs. Linking verbs have no further classification. And what are these? Primary auxiliary verbs. They are again further classified as to be, to have and to do forms. And modal verbs are like again can, could, shall, should, will, would and may and might and must. Okay. And semi-auxiliary are need to, ought to, okay, used to and dare. All these are semi-auxiliary modal verbs. And coming to finite type, under finite type only the lexical kind, that is the main verbs. The main verbs are further classified as, how are the main verbs further classified into? Do you remember? Will you try or do you want me to tell it again? Okay, so main verbs are again classified. How they are classified? Based on the object. What is the object? They can be like transitive or intransitive. Based on the action, they can be dynamic or static. Based on the past forms used, they can be regular or irregular again. And coming to non-finite times, they are again classified into 3 types: the infinitives, gerunds and the participles. Infinitives are nothing but 2 plus V1 form, that is the root form. And coming to gerunds, they will be using V4 form, which is the ing form of the verb. And coming to participle, they will be using, in present case, they will be using V4 form. In past participle, they will be using V3 form. In perfect participle, they will be using having plus V3 form. So, what are all these forms and all, we will discuss in detail. So, I hope you liked the video. Please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you.